Marcus Thompson never imagined that serving one table would change his entire life. On a busy Friday night at Chicago's most expensive restaurant, a manager's cruel words would expose a secret that rocked the city. A mysterious customer in a simple black suit would reveal an identity that nobody saw coming, and a young waiter's quiet dignity would spark a battle for justice that made headlines across the nation. What started as workplace humiliation became a fight that would transform not just one restaurant, but an entire community. Because sometimes the person you underestimate turns out to own everything you thought you controlled. This is the story of how one night of discrimination led to the most important victory of Marcus Thompson's life. Marcus Thompson wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. The golden lights of Aurelius Restaurant made everything shine like a palace. Marble floors reflected the warm glow from crystal chandeliers hanging above. Rich people in expensive clothes sat at tables that cost more than Marcus made in a week. He hurried between the tables, carrying heavy plates of food. His black uniform was pressed and clean, but he still felt out of place. After 3 years working here, he should feel comfortable, but he didn't. Not really. Table 12 needs more bread, called Jennifer from across the dining room. She was one of the few servers who treated Marcus like a friend instead of competition. Got it, Marcus replied, grabbing a basket of warm rolls from the kitchen. The kitchen was hot and loud. Chef Maria Santos ran it like a general commanding an army. Order up, she shouted. Table 7, Wagyu steak, medium rare. Marcus looked at the expensive cut of meat. One steak cost $180. That was almost half his weekly pay. He couldn't imagine spending that much money on one meal. Tonight felt different though. The restaurant manager, Vincent Hayes, seemed more nervous than usual. Vincent was a thin man with pale skin and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He walked around the dining room like he owned the place. Big night tonight, Marcus, Vincent said, stopping beside him. Some very important guests coming. Don't mess this up. Marcus nodded quickly. Yes, sir. I'll be careful. You better be. This job doesn't come with second chances. Marcus knew that was true. He needed this job more than Vincent could ever understand. His mother, Sarah, was fighting cancer. The hospital bills kept coming in the mail like angry letters. His little sister, Keisha, needed school supplies and new clothes. Every tip Marcus earned mattered. The restaurant filled up as evening turned to night. Lawyers in expensive suits talked about big cases. Doctors discussed their weekend plans to fly to New York. Business owners complained about taxes while eating $100 meals. Most of them barely looked at Marcus when he served their food. To them, he was invisible, just under server in a black uniform. They talked around him like he wasn't there. The Thompson account is worth millions, said a woman at table 4. She wore diamonds that sparkled in the light. We should close the deal this week, her dinner partner agreed. Thompson Industries has been looking for the right investment. Marcus wondered if they knew his last name was Thompson too. Probably not. Rich people didn't think servers had real names or real lives. At 8:30, something changed. The front door opened and a tall man walked in. He wore a simple black suit, nothing flashy or expensive looking. But something about him made Marcus look twice. The man was tall, maybe 6 feet, 6 inches. He moved with confidence, like someone used to being in charge. His face seemed familiar, but Marcus couldn't place it. Maybe he'd seen him on TV or in a magazine. The hostess, Patricia Wong, led the man to table 7. It was the best table in the restaurant, right in the center of the VIP section. Only the most important customers sat there. Marcus watched as the man sat down alone. Most VP customers came with groups, business partners, family, friends. This man seemed comfortable eating by himself. Vincent Hayes noticed the lone customer too. He straightened his tie and walked over to greet him personally. Marcus couldn't hear what they said, but Vincent smiled and nodded a lot. That usually meant the customer was very wealthy or very famous. Marcus called David Kellerman from across the room. David was a newer server, only working at Aurelius for 1 month, but he was white and young and spoke with no accent. Vincent seemed to like him already. Take water to table 7, David said. Vincent wants the new guy to handle VIP tonight. Marcus felt his heart sink a little. The VIP section had the biggest tips. Rich customers sometimes left $50 or even $100 extra if they were happy with the service. That money could pay for Keisha's school books or help with mom's medicine. But he didn't argue. Marcus had learned not to ask too many questions at work. He just did what he was told and tried to do it well. He filled a glass pitcher with ice water and walked to table 7. Up close, the customer looked even more familiar. Kind eyes, strong jaw, the kind of confidence that came from real success, not just inherited money. "Good evening, sir," Marcus said politely. "Welcome to Aurelius." The man looked up from his menu and smiled. It was a warm smile, the kind that made Marcus feel like a real person, instead of just a server. "Thank you," the man said. His voice was deep and friendly. "I've heard great things about this place." Marcus poured water into the crystal glass, trying to keep his hands steady. For some reason, he felt nervous around this customer. Not scared nervous, more like meeting someone important nervous. "Long day?" the man asked, noticing Marcus's slight tremor. "Yes, sir," Marcus replied. "But I'm fine. Nothing I can't handle." "I'm sure you can handle anything," the man said with certainty. "You look like someone who works hard and doesn't give up." The words caught Marcus off guard. Most customers didn't really see him, let alone comment on his character. This man seemed different. "Thank you, sir. Can I tell you about our specials tonight?" "Please do." Marcus described the chef's recommendations, including the Wagyu steak the kitchen had just prepared. The man listened carefully, asking good questions about the food. "The Wagyu sounds perfect," he decided. "And maybe some of that wine you mentioned." "Excellent choice, sir. I'll get that started for you right away." As Marcus walked back toward the kitchen, he felt the man watching him, not in a creepy way, more like he was genuinely interested in what Marcus was doing. It was a strange feeling, being noticed by someone so important. In the kitchen, Marcus gave the order to Chef Santos. "Table 7 wants the Wagyu special and a glass of the Bordeaux." "Good choice," she said, already seasoning the expensive steak. "That customer has good taste." Marcus agreed, though he wasn't sure why. Something about the man at table 7 seemed special, different from the usual wealthy customers who came to Aurelius. He delivered the wine first, making sure to pour it properly and let the customer taste it. The man approved with another warm smile. "This is excellent," he said. "You're doing a great job." Marcus felt a flush of pride. In 3 years at Aurelius, most customers had never bothered to compliment his service. This man not only noticed but took time to say something kind. When the steak arrived, perfectly cooked and beautifully presented, the man's face lit up. "This looks incredible," he said. "Thank you for taking such good care of me." "It's my pleasure, sir." And Marcus meant it. For the first time all evening, he felt like he was doing something that mattered. Not just carrying plates, but actually helping someone enjoy their night. But as Marcus walked away from table 7, he didn't notice the man watching him carefully. He didn't see the small smile on the customer's face, or the way his eyes followed Marcus around the dining room. This stranger knew something Marcus didn't. Something that would change everything before the night was over. The mysterious customer at table 7 seemed to enjoy every bite of his steak. Marcus checked on him 3 times during the meal, and each time the man thanked him with genuine warmth. "This is the best service I've had in years," the customer said as Marcus refilled his water glass. "You really care about your work." Marcus felt a glow of pride. "Thank you, sir. I just want to make sure you have a good evening." "Well, you're succeeding." The man cut another piece of steak. "How long have you worked here?" 3 years, sir." 3 years? You must know this place inside and out." "I try to learn something new every day," Marcus replied honestly. The man nodded approvingly. "That's a good attitude. Hard work and dedication always pay off eventually." Marcus wasn't so sure about that. He'd worked hard for 3 years, but he was still stuck serving the regular section while newer employees like David got promoted to VIP tables. Still, he didn't want to complain to a customer. "Is there anything else I can get for you, sir?" "Actually, yes. Could you tell me about the dessert menu?" Marcus described the restaurant's famous chocolate soufflé and the seasonal fruit tart. The customer decided on the soufflé, which would take 20 minutes to prepare fresh. "Perfect," the man said. "I'm in no hurry." As Marcus walked to the kitchen to place the dessert order, he felt good about the evening. This customer was kind, polite, and seemed genuinely happy with the service. Maybe he would leave a nice tip that could help with Mom's medical bills. But his good mood disappeared the moment he saw Vincent Hayes storming across the dining room. Vincent's face was red with anger, and he was heading straight for Marcus. "Thompson." Vincent's voice was loud enough that several customers turned to look. "What do you think you're doing?" Marcus stopped walking. "I'm serving table 7, sir. Taking a dessert order." "Not anymore, you're not." Vincent grabbed Marcus by the arm, his fingers digging in hard. "David will handle the VIP section from now on." Marcus felt his stomach drop. The VIP section was where the real money was made. Those customers tipped $20, $30, even $50 for good service. He needed that money desperately. "But sir, I've been doing fine. The customer seems happy." "Don't argue with me." Vincent's voice got even louder. More diners were staring now, including the man at table 7. Marcus felt embarrassed and confused. "I don't understand," Marcus said quietly. "Did I do something wrong?" Vincent's eyes were cold and mean. "You people don't belong in the VIP section. You make our wealthy customers uncomfortable." The words hit Marcus like a punch to the stomach. "You people." Everyone in the restaurant could hear Vincent now. The elegant dining room had gone quiet, with 50 pairs of eyes watching the scene unfold. Marcus felt his face burn with shame and anger. After 3 years of perfect service, after never being late or rude or making mistakes, this was how Vincent really saw him. "I work just as hard as anyone else here," Marcus said, his voice barely controlled. "Hard work isn't enough." Vincent sneered, getting closer to Marcus's face. "Our customers expect a certain class, something you'll never have. Now get back to the regular section where you belong." Marcus's hands clenched into fists. He wanted to say so many things. He wanted to tell Vincent about working double shifts to pay for his mother's cancer treatments. He wanted to explain that he'd trained most of the other servers, including David. He wanted to defend himself against the unfairness of it all. But he also needed this job. His family needed this job. So he swallowed his pride and his anger. "Yes, sir," he said quietly. "That's better. Now go clean up table 12. The Hendersons spilled wine all over everything. As Marcus turned to walk away, feeling defeated and humiliated, something unexpected happened. The tall customer from table 7 stood up slowly. The man was even taller than Marcus had realized. Maybe 6 feet 6 inches. When he stood, his presence seemed to fill the entire restaurant. There was something powerful about him, something that made everyone stop and pay attention. "Excuse me," the customer said to Vincent. His voice was calm but carried clearly across the quiet dining room. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation." Vincent turned around, annoyed at being interrupted. "Sir, this is a private employee matter. Please return to your table." "Actually," the man said, stepping closer, "it's not private when you're shouting in front of your entire restaurant." Vincent's face turned an even deeper shade of red. "Sir, I don't know who you think you are, but I manage this dining room. I decide who serves where and how." The customer smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that made Marcus think of a tiger right before it pounced. "Is that so?" the man asked quietly. "Yes, that's so." Vincent was almost shouting now, completely losing control. This young man was in the wrong section, bothering our VIP customers. "I was simply correcting the situation." Marcus watched in amazement. No customer had ever stood up for him before. Most of them probably agreed with Vincent's attitude, even if they wouldn't say it out loud. Bothering customers? The tall man looked genuinely confused. He provided excellent service, professional, courteous, knowledgeable. "I couldn't have asked for better." "Well, maybe you have lower standards than our usual clientele," Vincent snapped. The restaurant gasped. Even Vincent seemed to realize he'd gone too far. You didn't insult customers at Aurelius, no matter how angry you were. But the customer didn't look offended. Instead, he looked almost amused. "Lower standards," he repeated slowly. "That's interesting." Vincent tried to recover. "Sir, I apologize if that sounded harsh. But you have to understand, we have certain expectations here, a certain image to maintain." "And what image is that exactly?" "Elegance, sophistication, The kind of atmosphere our wealthy customers expect when they spend this kind of money. The customer nodded thoughtfully. And you don't think this young man fits that image? Frankly, no. He doesn't have the background for this level of service. Marcus wanted to disappear. Having his worthiness debated in front of the entire restaurant was worse than being yelled at. But the customer wasn't done asking questions. What background would that be? Vincent seemed to realize he was walking into dangerous territory. Well, education. Breeding. The kind of polish that comes from good family. I see. And you can tell all that just by looking at someone? Experience teaches you these things, Vincent said smugly. The customer pulled out his phone. Experience. That's fascinating. Sir, I really think you should return to your table now. This conversation is over. Actually, the man said, starting to dial a number. I think it's just beginning. Vincent looked confused and increasingly angry. Who are you calling? This is my restaurant, and I don't care if you complain to corporate. I know how to handle difficult customers. The man finished dialing and held the phone to his ear. Marcus could hear it ringing. Yes, it's me, the customer said into the phone. His voice was quiet, but somehow everyone in the restaurant could hear every word. I'm at the restaurant now. We need to talk. There's been a situation. Vincent crossed his arms defiantly. Call whoever you want. I've been managing this dining room for 5 years. I know what our customers expect, and I know how to deliver it. The customer hung up his phone and put it back in his pocket. When he looked at Vincent again, his expression had changed. The kindness Marcus had seen earlier was gone, replaced by something much colder. You know what customers expect? The man asked. Absolutely. And you think I don't belong here either? Vincent looked the customer up and down, taking in his simple black suit and lack of flashy jewelry. Let's just say you're not our typical VIP customer. The man smiled again, and this time it was genuinely frightening. You're absolutely right, he said. I'm not typical at all. Before Vincent could respond, the kitchen doors burst open. Jonathan Aurelius, the restaurant owner, came rushing out. Behind him was Patricia Wong, the general manager, and several other people Marcus didn't recognize. Jonathan's face was pale white, like he'd seen a ghost. He looked at the customer, then at Vincent, then back at the customer. Oh no, Jonathan whispered. Vincent, do you have any idea what you've done? Jonathan Aurelius looked like a man who had just watched his entire world collapse. He stared at the tall customer with wide, frightened eyes, then turned to Vincent with an expression of pure horror. Vincent, Jonathan said again, his voice shaking, please tell me you didn't just insult this gentleman. Vincent looked confused. He glanced between his boss and the customer, clearly not understanding why everyone seemed so terrified. I was handling a staff issue, Vincent said defensively. This customer got involved in something that wasn't his business. Jonathan closed his eyes and took a deep breath, like he was trying not to scream. Patricia Wong, the general manager, stepped forward. She was a small woman with graying hair, but she commanded respect throughout the restaurant. Now she looked like she might faint. Mr. Hayes, Patricia said carefully, do you know who you're speaking to? Some customer who thinks he can tell me how to run my dining room, Vincent replied stubbornly. The tall man had been watching this exchange with interest. Now he smiled and extended his hand toward Marcus. I don't think we've been properly introduced, he said. My name is Michael Jordan. The words hit the restaurant like a thunderbolt. Marcus felt his knees go weak. Michael Jordan. The Michael Jordan. 6 NBA championships with the Chicago Bulls. 5 Most Valuable Player awards. The greatest basketball player who ever lived. And he had just defended Marcus against Vincent Hayes. Oh my God, Marcus whispered, barely able to speak. Vincent's face went from red to green to white in the space of 3 seconds. His mouth opened and closed like a fish trying to breathe on dry land. Mr. Jordan, Jonathan stammered, rushing forward. This is such an incredible honor. I had no idea you were dining with us tonight. The honor is mine, Michael said politely. But his eyes remained cold as ice when he looked at Vincent. I've been watching your staff in action tonight. Very interesting management techniques you have here. Vincent finally found his voice. Mr. Jordan, sir, I can explain everything. There was a misunderstanding. Please do explain. Michael interrupted. His voice was quiet, but it carried the kind of authority that made everyone in the restaurant lean forward to listen. "Explain to me why you humiliated this young man in front of 50 people." The dining room was completely silent now. Even the kitchen sounds had stopped. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. The VIP section has certain standards." Vincent's words came out in a jumbled rush. "What standards?" Michael asked. "Professional service? Courtesy? Knowledge of the menu?" Because from what I observed, this young man exceeded every one of those standards. Vincent tried again. "Our customers expect a certain type of server in the VIP area. Someone with the right background." Background. Michael repeated the words slowly, like he was tasting something bitter. "And what background is that exactly?" Marcus watched Vincent squirm. Even Vincent seemed to realize how his words sounded when repeated back to him. "Well, education, breeding, the kind of polish that comes from good breeding," Vincent mumbled. "Good breeding." Michael's voice got even quieter, which somehow made it more frightening. "Tell me, Mr. Hayes, what do you know about my breeding?" "Sir, my background, my education, my breeding." Michael stepped closer to Vincent. At 6 feet 6 inches tall, he towered over the restaurant manager. "I grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina. My father worked as a mechanic. My mother cleaned houses to help pay the bills." Vincent's eyes grew wider with each word. "I got cut from my high school basketball team as a sophomore," Michael continued. "The coach said I wasn't good enough. Told me I should focus on my studies instead of wasting time on sports." The restaurant was so quiet that Marcus could hear people breathing. "When I got to the University of North Carolina, some people said I didn't belong there either. Said I was just another black kid who got in because of basketball, not because of my brain." Michael's voice never got louder, but every word carried weight like a hammer blow. "When I joined the Chicago Bulls, critics said I was too selfish to win championships. Said I didn't have the leadership qualities of a true champion." Vincent looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "But you know what I learned, Mr. Hayes? I learned that respect isn't about where you come from or what you look like. It's about how you treat people and how hard you're willing to work." Michael turned to look at Marcus. "This young man has been nothing but professional and courteous all evening. He knows the menu, he's attentive without being pushy, and he treats customers with genuine respect." He turned back to Vincent. "You, on the other hand, just humiliated an employee in front of your entire restaurant. You used the phrase, 'you people,' like it was 1955. You told me I have lower standards than your usual customers." Vincent tried to speak, but no words came out. "But here's the thing," Michael continued, "and this is where it gets really interesting." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a leather folder. Vincent's eyes locked onto it like it might explode. "6 months ago, I made an investment in Chicago's restaurant industry," Michael said, opening the folder slowly. "I wanted to see how businesses in this city really operate, how they treat their employees, how they serve their community." Jonathan Aurelius had gone completely pale. Patricia Wong grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. "I bought a controlling interest in several establishments," Michael continued. "I wanted to remain anonymous at first, to see how these places really run when they think no one important is watching." Marcus felt like the room was spinning. Where was this going? "One of those investments," Michael said, pulling out an official-looking document, "was a 60% ownership stake in Aurelius Restaurant." The words hit the dining room like an explosion. Customers gasped. Staff members stared in shock. Marcus felt like his brain had stopped working. Michael Jordan owned the restaurant where Marcus worked. The restaurant where Vincent had just humiliated him. "The anonymous investor," Jonathan whispered. "That was you." "It was," Michael confirmed. "I wanted to see how this establishment really operates. Tonight I got my answer." Vincent's legs were shaking so badly he had to grab a table to keep from falling down. "Mr. Jordan," Vincent said, his voice cracking, "I didn't know. If I had known you were the owner..." "You would have what?" Michael interrupted. "Treated your employees with respect? Served customers without judging them by their appearance? Done your job professionally?" Vincent had no answer. "The fact that you would behave differently based on who you think is watching tells me everything I need to know about your character." Michael said. He turned to address the entire restaurant, his voice carrying clearly to every corner. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption to your evening, but I believe it's important for everyone to understand what just happened here. Marcus could barely breathe. This couldn't be real. But it was happening right in front of him. This young man, Michael pointed to Marcus, has worked here for 3 years with perfect attendance and excellent performance reviews. Yet he was just told he doesn't belong in the VIP section because of his background. Murmurs rippled through the crowd of diners. Mr. Hayes made it clear that he judges people not by their work or their character, but by assumptions about their education, breeding, and social class. Michael's voice grew stronger. Well, I have news for Mr. Hayes and anyone else who thinks that way. I don't care if someone grew up in a mansion or a housing project. I don't care if they went to Harvard or dropped out of high school. What I care about is how they treat other people. The restaurant erupted in applause. Customers stood up, clapping and cheering. Marcus felt tears running down his cheeks. "Mr. Hayes," Michael said, turning back to Vincent, "you're fired. Security will escort you from the building." "You can't do this," Vincent shouted, suddenly finding his voice again. "I have rights. I have a contract." "You had rights," Patricia Wong said firmly, stepping forward with 2 security guards. "You gave them up when you created a hostile work environment and embarrassed this restaurant." As the security guards moved toward Vincent, he turned desperately to Jonathan Aurelius. "Jonathan, you can't let him do this. I've worked here for 5 years. This is reverse discrimination." But Jonathan wouldn't even look at him. "This isn't over," Vincent yelled as the guards took his arms. "I'll sue. I'll ruin this place. You can't treat white employees like this." "Good luck with that," Michael said calmly. As Vincent was escorted out the front door, still shouting threats, Michael turned to Marcus. The entire restaurant watched in complete silence. "Marcus Thompson," Michael said, "I've been observing you work tonight. You're professional, courteous, and dedicated. Those are exactly the qualities I value in an employee." Marcus tried to speak but couldn't make any sound come out. "I'm promoting you to VIP section supervisor, effective immediately," Michael announced. "You'll oversee all VIP service and help train other servers. Your salary is doubled, and you'll receive full health benefits including coverage for family members." The restaurant exploded in applause again. Marcus felt like he might collapse from shock and gratitude. "But sir," Marcus finally managed to say, "Why? Why would you do all this for me?" Michael's expression softened, and for a moment he looked less like a basketball legend and more like someone who understood struggle. "Because 30 years ago I was exactly where you are now," he said quietly. "I was a young black man, trying to make it in a world that didn't always want me to succeed. People judged me before they knew me. People said I didn't belong." He paused, looking around the restaurant. "But I had coaches and teammates and mentors who believed in me, who gave me chances when others wouldn't, who saw my potential instead of my limitations." Michael put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Tonight I'm paying that forward." Marcus wiped tears from his eyes. "I don't know what to say. Say you'll help me make this restaurant a place where everyone is treated with dignity and respect, regardless of where they come from." "Yes, sir. I promise." "Then we have a deal." Michael smiled, and this time it was the warm, genuine smile Marcus had seen earlier. "But call me Michael." As the restaurant erupted in celebration around them, Michael leaned closer to Marcus. "There's something else I need to tell you," he said quietly. "Something bigger than just this restaurant. Something that's going to change your entire neighborhood." The restaurant slowly returned to normal as customers finished their meals and conversations resumed. But Marcus felt like his whole world had been turned upside down. Michael Jordan, the Michael Jordan, had just fired his boss and promoted him. And now he was saying there was something even bigger. "Can we talk privately?" Michael asked, gesturing toward a quiet corner table. Marcus nodded, still feeling like he was in a dream. They sat down away from the other diners, and Michael pulled out a leather briefcase that Marcus hadn't noticed before. "What I'm about to show you needs to stay between us for now," Michael said seriously. "Can I trust you with that?" "Yes, sir. Absolutely." Michael opened the briefcase and spread out papers across the table. Marcus saw blueprints, business plans, official documents with lots of numbers and legal words he didn't understand. "Marcus, buying this restaurant was just the first step in something much larger," Michael explained. "I'm planning a complete transformation of this entire neighborhood. Marcus looked at the blueprints more closely. They showed buildings he didn't recognize. Modern structures with glass walls and open spaces. What kind of transformation? Michael pointed to different sections of the plans. A youth center with basketball courts, computer labs, and study rooms. A job training facility that will teach restaurant skills, computer programming, and business management. And affordable housing for working families. Marcus's eyes grew wide. In this neighborhood? On the south side? Especially on the south side, Michael said firmly. This community has been forgotten for too long. I made my fortune here in Chicago, playing for the Bulls. Now I want to give back to the city that made me who I am. Marcus studied the plans more carefully. The youth center looked incredible. 3 full basketball courts, a library, music rooms, and even a small theater. How much would something like this cost? $50 million, Michael said simply. Marcus nearly choked. 50 million? That's more money than I can even imagine. It's a lot of money, Michael agreed, but it's an investment in people, in futures, in giving kids the same kinds of opportunities I had. Marcus thought about his sister Keisha, and all the other kids in their neighborhood. Most of them had nowhere safe to go after school. The local community center was old and falling apart. The basketball courts had broken hoops and cracked concrete. This would change everything, Marcus said quietly. That's the idea. But here's the thing. I can build the buildings and create the programs, but I need local people to help run them. People who understand the community. People who care about making a real difference. Michael looked directly at Marcus. People like you. Marcus shook his head. Mr. Jordan, I'm just a waiter. I don't know anything about running youth programs or job training. You know how to work hard, Michael replied. You know how to treat people with respect. You understand what it's like to struggle and not give up. Those are the most important qualifications. Across the restaurant, Marcus could see other employees cleaning tables and serving late customers. Some of them kept glancing over at him and Michael, probably wondering what they were discussing. There's more, Michael continued, pulling out another set of documents. I want to start a scholarship program. Full college tuition for students from the South Side who show academic promise and community involvement. Marcus's heart started beating faster. He thought immediately of Keisha, his brilliant little sister who dreamed of becoming a doctor but would never be able to afford medical school. Would my sister? Marcus started, then stopped. It felt wrong to ask about his family when Michael was talking about helping the whole community. Tell me about your sister, Michael said gently. Marcus's face lit up despite his nervousness. Keisha is 14 and the smartest person I know. She gets straight A's in all her classes, even the advanced ones. She volunteers at the old community center helping younger kids with their homework. She wants to be a doctor someday. She sounds like exactly the kind of student we want to help, Michael said. But college is expensive, even with scholarships. That's why I'm working so hard, Marcus explained. I was hoping to save enough money to help pay for her education. But with Mom's medical bills, he trailed off, not wanting to burden Michael with his family's problems. Tell me about your mother. She has cancer, Marcus said quietly. The treatments are helping, but the hospital bills keep coming. Even with insurance, we owe thousands of dollars. Michael nodded thoughtfully. Healthcare costs can destroy a family's finances, even when they're doing everything right. Mom worked 2 jobs her whole life, Marcus said. She never missed a day of work until she got sick. She raised me and Keisha by herself after Dad died. She doesn't deserve this. No one deserves to choose between their health and their family's financial security, Michael agreed. That's another reason why these programs are so important. Good jobs with good benefits can make all the difference. Marcus looked at the plans again, trying to imagine what his neighborhood would look like with these new buildings and programs. When would all this happen? Construction starts in 6 months, Michael said. The youth center should be open within a year. The job training facility and housing development will take longer, maybe 2 years total. And you really want me to help run these programs? I want you to be the community outreach coordinator, Michael said. You'd work with local families, help them access services, and make sure our programs really serve the people who need them most. Marcus felt overwhelmed. This morning he had been a waiter struggling to pay bills. Now Michael Jordan was offering him a chance to help transform his entire neighborhood. I don't know if I'm ready for something that big. Nobody ever feels ready for their big break, Michael said with a smile. "I didn't feel ready when I got drafted by the Bulls. I was just a kid from North Carolina who loved basketball. But sometimes you have to take a leap before you feel ready." Through the restaurant's large windows, Marcus could see the street where he grew up. Old buildings with broken windows, empty lots filled with trash, corners where kids hung out because they had nowhere else to go. But now he could imagine something different. Clean, safe streets. Kids playing basketball in a real gym instead of on cracked outdoor courts. Parents learning new job skills that could support their families. "Why are you doing all this?" Marcus asked. "You're already successful. You could live anywhere, do anything you want." Michael leaned back in his chair. "Success doesn't mean much if you don't share it. Every kid in this city deserves the same chance I got. The chance to dream big and work towards something better." He gestured toward the window. "I see kids out there who remind me of myself at that age. Talented, hardworking, but limited by circumstances they can't control. If I can remove some of those barriers, maybe they'll surprise the world like I did." What would I have to do as community outreach coordinator? Meet with families, understand their needs, connect them with resources, help design programs that actually work for real people. Be the bridge between the community and the services we're providing. Marcus thought about all the families he knew who were struggling. Single mothers working multiple jobs, fathers who couldn't find steady work, kids who were smart but had no safe place to study or get help with homework. "The salary would be enough to support your family," Michael added, "including your mother's medical expenses and your sister's education." "You'd really do that?" "I believe in investing in people who care about their community," Michael said, "and I can see that you care deeply about making life better for others." Marcus felt tears in his eyes again. This opportunity was more than he had ever dared to hope for. "When would I start?" "Tomorrow, if you want. We have a lot of work to do before construction begins." Marcus looked around the restaurant where he had worked for 3 years. He thought about Vincent Hayes and all the small humiliations he had endured. He thought about his mother fighting cancer and his sister dreaming of medical school. "I accept," he said firmly. "I want to help build something that will make a real difference." Michael smiled and extended his hand. "Welcome to the team, Marcus. You're gonna help change a lot of lives." As they shook hands, Marcus felt like his life was truly beginning for the first time. But just then, Patricia Wong hurried over to their table. Her face was pale with worry. "Michael," she said urgently, "we have a problem." Vincent Hayes just left the building, but he didn't go quietly. He called a reporter friend of his. "There's already a story online claiming you fired him because he's white." Michael's expression grew serious. "What exactly does the story say? That you're using your wealth and fame to push a reverse racism agenda? That you humiliated a hardworking white employee in front of customers?" The headline is Michael Jordan's Restaurant Controversy. Basketball legend accused of racial discrimination. Marcus felt his stomach drop. This incredible night was about to become a nightmare. "It gets worse," Patricia continued. "Vincent is planning a press conference tomorrow morning. He's hired a lawyer who specializes in discrimination cases. They're threatening to sue not just the restaurant, but all of your community development projects." Michael was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then he looked at Marcus with determination. "This is exactly why the community needs these programs," he said. "People like Vincent will always try to tear down progress. The question is, are we going to let them succeed?" By 11 o'clock that night, the story had exploded across Chicago. Marcus sat in the restaurant's back office, watching news reports on Patricia's laptop, while Michael made phone calls to his lawyers. Michael Jordan Restaurant Scandal flashed across the screen of Channel 7 News. The reporter, a young woman with perfectly styled blonde hair, spoke seriously into the camera. "Tonight, basketball legend Michael Jordan is facing accusations of reverse discrimination at his upscale Chicago restaurant, Aurelius. Former manager Vincent Hayes claims he was fired not for poor performance but because of his race." Marcus felt sick watching this. Vincent appeared on the screen, sitting next to a sharp-dressed lawyer with cold gray eyes. "Michael Jordan humiliated me in front of 50 customers," Vincent said, his voice shaking with fake emotion. "He made racist assumptions about my abilities and created a hostile work environment for white employees." The interviewer leaned forward. "But witnesses say you made discriminatory comments about African American servers. Vincent's lawyer, who looked expensive and dangerous, interrupted smoothly. My client was simply managing his staff according to established restaurant policies. Mr. Jordan overreacted to a routine workplace interaction and turned it into a racial incident. That's completely false, Marcus said to the laptop screen. Michael finished his phone call and sat down beside Marcus. My legal team is reviewing everything, he said calmly. Vincent can say whatever he wants to the media, but courts require proof. But what if people believe him? Marcus asked. What if this ruins your community projects? Then we'll have to work harder to show them the truth. Michael replied. Patricia burst into the office, her phone buzzing constantly. The restaurant's phone hasn't stopped ringing, she reported. Reporters, angry customers, people threatening to boycott us. How many reservation cancellations? Michael asked. 47 for tomorrow alone. The weekend is looking bad too. Marcus watched the news coverage continue. Social media posts flashed across the screen, some defending Michael, others attacking him. The comments were getting uglier by the minute. Maybe I should quit, Marcus said quietly. If I'm not here, Vincent can't use me as part of his story. Absolutely not, Michael said firmly. Running away won't solve anything. Besides, this isn't about you, it's about something much bigger. Jennifer Martinez, the Latina server who had always been kind to Marcus, knocked on the office door. Mecca Jordan? Some of the staff want to talk to you. Of course. Send them in. 6 employees crowded into the small office, servers, kitchen staff, even Chen from the host station. They all looked nervous but determined. David Kellerman, the white server who was supposed to replace Marcus in the VIP section, spoke first. Mr. Jordan, we watched the news. Vincent is lying about what happened tonight. We want to tell the truth, added Jennifer. Vincent wasn't just unfair to Marcus, he made life miserable for anyone who wasn't white. Chen nodded vigorously. He told me once that my accent made customers uncomfortable. He said I should try to sound more American if I wanted better shifts. He called me the taco girl behind my back, Jennifer said, her voice shaking with anger. When I asked for more hours, he said maybe I should go back to serving Mexican food instead of fine dining. Marcus listened in amazement as story after story poured out. Vincent had created a hostile work environment for years, but people had been too afraid to speak up. Michael listened carefully to each person. How long has this been going on? Since Vincent became manager 5 years ago, David said. The previous manager, Mrs. Peterson, treated everyone fairly, but Vincent changed everything. Why didn't anyone report this to management? Jennifer and Chen exchanged glances. Because Vincent was friends with the old general manager, Jennifer explained. Complaints disappeared. People who spoke up got fired for performance issues. Patricia looked horrified. I became general manager only 6 months ago. I had no idea any of this was happening. Vincent was careful around upper management, Chen added. He saved his worst behavior for when no supervisors were around. Michael stood up and addressed the group. I want each of you to write down everything you remember about Vincent's discriminatory behavior. Dates, witnesses, specific incidents. My lawyers will need detailed documentation. Are you going to fight back? David asked. We're going to do more than fight back, Michael said with determination. We're going to show this city what a truly inclusive workplace looks like. But even as employees shared their stories, Marcus could see the news getting worse. His phone buzzed with text messages from friends and neighbors who had seen the coverage. His sister Keisha texted, "Saw the news. Are you okay? Kids at school are saying crazy things." His mother sent, "Baby, come home when you can. We need to talk." Marcus felt the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. This wasn't just about him anymore. His family was being dragged into it too. Around midnight, something unexpected started happening. Marcus's phone buzzed with a different kind of message. His neighbor, Mrs. Washington, texted, "Saw what really happened on the news. That manager was wrong. We support you." Then another. "Marcus, this is Tony from the community center. Everyone here knows you're a good kid. Don't let them bring you down." More messages kept coming. "Proud of you for standing up. Vincent Hayes is the real problem. Michael Jordan did the right thing. Look at this." Marcus showed Michael his phone. "People from my neighborhood are supporting us." Patricia looked up from her laptop. It's not just your neighborhood. Check this out. She turned the screen toward them. Social media was lighting up with support for Michael and Marcus. Restaurant workers from across Chicago were sharing their own stories of discrimination and unfair treatment. A hashtag had started trending. Stand with Marcus. Thousands of people were posting about workplace discrimination they had had or witnessed. This is incredible, Jennifer said, reading over Patricia's shoulder. Look at all these stories. But the support came with a cost. Pro-Vincent supporters were pushing back just as hard. The comms sections were filled with angry arguments about race, fairness, and whether rich celebrities like Michael Jordan had too much power. By 1 a.m., protesters had gathered outside Aurelius. Marcus could see them through the office window. Two groups facing each other across the street. One side held signs reading "Justice for Marcus" and "End Workplace Discrimination." The other side carried signs saying "Reverse racism is still racism" and "Vincent Hayes was wronged." Police cars lined the street, their red and blue lights flashing in the darkness. "This is getting out of control," Patricia said nervously. "Maybe we should close the restaurant tomorrow." "No," Michael said firmly. "Closing would send the wrong message. We stay open and serve every customer with excellence. But what if there's trouble? Then we handle it professionally and prove that we're better than the hatred being thrown at us." Marcus watched the protesters through the window. Some of them looked angry enough to cause real problems. "Mr. Jordan, what if they're right?" he asked quietly. "What if I'm not worth all this trouble?" Michael turned to face Marcus directly. "Let me tell you something about worth. Marcus, when I was playing basketball, there were always people who said I didn't deserve my success, that I was lucky, that other players were more deserving." He paused, looking out at the protesters. "But here's what I learned. Your worth isn't determined by what other people think of you. It's determined by your character, your effort, and your impact on others." Michael gestured toward the employees still gathered in the office. "Look around this room. Every person here knows that Vincent treated people unfairly. Every person here has seen you work hard and treat others with respect. But Vincent has lawyers and media connections," Marcus said. "What do we have?" "We have the truth," Michael replied. "And we have something else. We have each other." Jennifer spoke up. "Marcus, you trained me when I first started here. You helped me learn the menu and deal with difficult customers. You never made me feel stupid for asking questions. You covered my shifts when my dad was in the hospital," Chen added. "You didn't have to do that. But you did." David nodded. "You're the best server in this restaurant. Everyone knows it except Vincent." Marcus felt overwhelmed by the support from his coworkers. For 3 years he had felt alone at work, just trying to survive until his next paycheck. Now he realized he had friends he didn't even know about. "Tomorrow is going to be a big day," Michael said to the group. "Vincent's press conference is at 10 a.m. Reporters will probably try to interview anyone connected to the restaurant." He looked at each person seriously. "I won't tell you what to say, but I will ask you to tell the truth. Whatever happened, whatever you saw, just be honest." "What about the community development projects?" Marcus asked. "Vincent's lawyer said they would try to stop those too." Michael's jaw tightened. "That's exactly what I'm most worried about. Thousands of kids and families are counting on those programs. I won't let Vincent's lies destroy opportunities for an entire community." As the employees prepared to leave for the night, Patricia's phone rang one more time. She answered it, listened for a moment, then hung up with a pale face. "That was my contact at City Hall," she said. "Vincent's legal team has filed an official complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. They're also threatening to sue the city to block the community development permits." Marcus felt his heart sink. "Can they do that?" "They can try," Michael said grimly. "But lawsuits work both ways. If Vincent wants to fight dirty, he's about to learn what it means to take on someone who never backs down from a challenge." Michael walked to the window and looked out at the protesters still gathered in the street. "Marcus, I want you to go home and get some rest. Tomorrow we start building our defense." "What kind of defense?" Michael smiled, and for the first time all evening, it was the confident smile of someone who had won 6 NBA championships. "The kind that doesn't just clear our names, the kind that changes everything." 3 weeks later, Marcus sat in Aurelius's private dining room facing the most important meeting of his life. Across the mahogany table sat Janet Reynolds, a federal investigator from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. She was a serious woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. Mr. Thompson, Investigator Reynolds said, opening a thick folder. I need you to tell me exactly what happened on the night of March 15th. Marcus glanced at Michael, who sat beside him along with her lawyer, Sarah Kim. Sarah was a small Korean-American woman who looked young but spoke with the confidence of someone who had won many difficult cases. Take your time, Sarah encouraged Marcus. Just tell the truth. Marcus took a deep breath and began describing that night. How Vincent had pulled him away from table 7, the humiliating comments about you people, and how Michael had defended him in front of the entire restaurant. Investigator Reynolds took careful notes, occasionally asking for specific details. Mr. Hayes claims he was following standard restaurant policy when he reassigned you, she said. He says VIP customers expect a certain level of sophistication. That's not true, Marcus replied firmly. I had been serving VIP customers successfully for months. My performance reviews were always excellent. But Mr. Hayes says you lacked the proper background for high-end service. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. What background? I knew the menu better than anyone. I spoke 3 languages. I never had a single customer complaint. Sarah Kim slid a stack of documents across the table. Investigator Reynolds. Here are Mr. Thompson's performance evaluations for the past 3 years. As you can see, every review rated him as exceptional or outstanding. The investigator flipped through the papers, her eyebrows rising slightly. These are very strong reviews. There's more, Sarah continued. We have testimony from 37 current and former employees documenting a pattern of discriminatory behavior by Mr. Hayes. Over the next 4 hours, Investigator Reynolds interviewed employee after employee. Marcus watched through the conference room window as his co-workers told their stories. Jennifer Martinez went first. She explained how Vincent had nicknamed her the Taco Girl and told her she should stick to ethnic restaurants instead of fine dining. David Kellerman described being promoted to VIP service on his first day, while Marcus, who had 3 years of perfect service, was never offered the same opportunity. Chen Wu revealed that Vincent had mocked his accent in front of customers, calling it unprofessional while praising other servers' clear American English. Maria Santos, the head chef, testified that Vincent had tried to prevent her from hiring Latino cooks, claiming they would make the kitchen too ethnic. Each story painted the same picture. Vincent Hayes had created a workplace where your race and background mattered more than your skills or work ethic. After the employee interviews, Investigator Reynolds looked exhausted. She had filled 3 legal pads with notes and had requested copies of dozens of documents. Mr. Jordan, she said, based on the evidence I've reviewed today, it appears Mr. Hayes created a discriminatory work environment that violated federal employment law. Marcus felt relief wash over him. Finally, someone in authority was seeing the truth. However, Investigator Reynolds continued, Mr. Hayes is claiming retaliation. He says you fired him not just for the incident with Mr. Thompson, but because you wanted to replace white managers with minority ones. Michael's jaw tightened. That's completely false. My current management team includes people of many different backgrounds, all promoted based on merit. He's also claiming that your community development projects are designed to exclude white residents from services and opportunities. This accusation hit Michael particularly hard. His vision for the South Side had always been about bringing people together, not dividing them. My programs are open to everyone based on need and qualifications, Michael explained. We have detailed guidelines ensuring fair access regardless of race. Sarah Kim produced another folder. Here are our program requirements and selection criteria. There are no racial preferences or exclusions anywhere. Investigator Reynolds studied the documents carefully. These appear comprehensive and non-discriminatory. But Mr. Hayes has hired Richard Sterling, a high-profile attorney who specializes in reverse discrimination cases. Marcus had heard of Richard Sterling. He was famous for winning lawsuits against companies that tried to increase diversity in their hiring. Sterling appeared on conservative news shows, arguing that efforts to help minorities were really attacks on white people. Sterling is planning to make this case very public, Investigator Reynolds warned. He's already scheduled multiple media appearances and is pushing for a federal civil rights investigation. As if summoned by her words, Marcus's phone buzzed with a news alert. Vincent Hayes was holding another press conference, this time with Sterling at his side. They watched the live stream on Sarah's laptop. Vincent stood outside the federal building, looking like a victim seeking justice. Michael Jordan thinks his fame puts him above the law, Vincent declared, reading from a prepared statement. But discrimination is discrimination, whether it comes from a basketball star or anyone else. Sterling stepped to the microphone, his expensive suit and perfect hair making him look like a politician. We're fighting for the rights of all workers to be judged by their performance, not their race. Mr. Jordan's actions represent a dangerous trend of reverse racism in American workplaces. The questions from reporters came fast and aggressive. Mr. Sterling, are you saying Michael Jordan is a racist? Is this about one restaurant manager or something bigger? What do you want from Mr. Jordan? Sterling answered smoothly, like he had practiced these responses. We want accountability. We want Mr. Jordan to admit he was wrong and compensate my client for the damage to his reputation and career. What about the community development projects? Those projects should be investigated to ensure they comply with federal anti-discrimination laws. If they favor certain racial groups, they should be stopped. Marcus felt sick listening to this. Sterling was trying to turn Michael's generous community investment into something evil and divisive. The press conference continued with more questions and accusations. Vincent looked nervous, but Sterling remained confident and polished. He knew how to work the media and public opinion. After the stream ended, Investigator Reynolds closed her files. This case is going to get very complicated very quickly, she said. Sterling is good at what he does, and he has powerful allies. What happens next? Michael asked. I'll complete my investigation and write a report. That could take several more weeks. In the meantime, Mr. Hayes can continue his media campaign and legal challenges. What about the community projects? Those are separate from the employment complaint, but Sterling might try to get them tied together. He's very skilled at expanding cases beyond their original scope. After Investigator Reynolds left, Michael, Marcus, and Sarah sat in the empty conference room, processing what they had learned. Sterling is going to make this as public and ugly as possible, Sarah warned. He'll try to turn you into a symbol of everything people fear about successful minorities having too much power. Let him try, Michael said grimly. I've faced hostile crowds before. This is different, Sarah continued. This isn't about basketball. This is about race, money, and power. The attacks will be personal and vicious. Marcus had been quiet during most of the legal discussion, but now he spoke up. Maybe I should step back from the community coordinator job. If Vincent can use my promotion as evidence against you. Absolutely not, Michael interrupted. That's exactly what Sterling wants, to make us back down and second-guess ourselves. But what if the projects get canceled? What if all those kids lose their chance at better programs? Michael stood up and walked to the window overlooking the street where he grew up. Marcus, do you know why I really bought this restaurant? To give back to the community? Partly. But also because I was tired of watching talented people get held back by other people's prejudices. Michael turned back to face Marcus. When I was young, coaches told me I was too small, too selfish, not a team player. Critics said I'd never win championships. He sat back down. Every time someone tried to limit what I could achieve, it just made me work harder to prove them wrong. This feels different though, Marcus said. You're not just fighting for yourself anymore. You're fighting for an entire community. That's exactly why we can't give up, Michael replied. Sterling and Vincent represent everything that keeps communities like ours from moving forward. They want to keep talented people in their place. Sarah Kim gathered her papers. I need to prepare for what's coming. Sterling will file multiple lawsuits and demand investigations of every aspect of your business dealings. How long could this drag on? Months? Maybe years. Sterling likes to exhaust his opponents with legal fees and negative publicity. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the scope of what they were facing. A few weeks ago, he was just a waiter trying to pay his mother's medical bills. Now he was at the center of a legal and media battle that could affect thousands of people. There's something else, Sarah said hesitantly. I got a call this afternoon from someone claiming to have inside information about the case. They want to meet with us. What kind of information? They wouldn't say over the phone, but they claimed to have evidence that could change everything. Michael and Marcus exchanged glances. Evidence about what? About who was really behind the discriminatory policies at Aurelius. According to this person, Vincent Hayes wasn't acting alone. The room went quiet as they processed this information. When and where do they want to meet? Michael asked. Tomorrow night, Lincoln Park near the lake. They insisted on meeting somewhere private. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. This sounds dangerous. What if it's a trap? It might be, Sarah agreed. But if this person really has evidence that could help our case, then we have to take the risk, Michael finished. We'll meet them. As they prepared to leave the restaurant, Marcus's phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. Hello? Marcus? This is Vincent Hayes. We need to talk. Marcus stared at his phone in shock. Vincent Hayes, the man who had humiliated him, who was now trying to destroy Michael Jordan's reputation, was calling him directly. Marcus? Are you there? Vincent's voice sounded different. Less angry, more desperate. What do you want? Marcus asked, stepping away from Michael and Sarah so they couldn't hear the conversation. I need to see you, tonight. There are things you don't know about what happened. Things that could change everything. Marcus almost hung up immediately. Why would he want to meet with Vincent after everything that had happened? I'm not interested in your excuses, Marcus said. This isn't about excuses. Vincent's voice was urgent. This is about the truth. The real truth about why I was told to fire you. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. What do you mean, told to fire me? Meet me at Lincoln Park tomorrow at 3 p.m. near the lake where we used to have company picnics. Come alone. Why should I trust you? Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Because you're a good person, Marcus. Better than I ever was. And because the people who are really responsible for what happened to you are about to get away with it. The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone, his mind racing. Michael and Sarah had been watching him during the call. Who was that? Michael asked. Vincent Hayes. He wants to meet with me tomorrow. Sarah looked alarmed. Absolutely not. It's obviously a trap. He's probably recording conversations now, trying to get you to say something that hurts our case. Maybe, Marcus said. But what if he really does know something important? It doesn't matter, Michael said firmly. Vincent has proven he can't be trusted. Whatever he claims to know, it's probably another lie. But Marcus couldn't stop thinking about Vincent's words. The people who are really responsible. What did that mean? The next day dragged by slowly. Marcus tried to focus on his new duties as VIP supervisor, training other servers and reviewing customer feedback. But his mind kept returning to Vincent's phone call. At 2:30 p.m., Marcus made a decision. He told the other staff he was taking a break and drove to Lincoln Park. Lincoln Park was nearly empty on a cold Tuesday afternoon. Marcus found Vincent sitting on a bench near the lake, staring out at the gray water. Vincent looked older than Marcus remembered, thinner, with dark circles under his eyes. You came, Vincent said without turning around. I'm here. Now talk. Vincent patted the bench beside him. Sit down. This is going to take a while. Marcus remained standing. I'll listen, but I'm not staying long. Vincent finally looked at him. His eyes were red, like he hadn't slept in weeks. Marcus, what I'm about to tell you is going to be hard to believe. Try me. I was ordered to fire you. 3 days before Michael Jordan showed up at the restaurant, I got a call from corporate headquarters. They wanted you gone. Marcus felt like he'd been punched. That's impossible. My performance reviews were perfect. Your performance was never the issue. Vincent stood up and started walking along the lake path. Marcus followed, despite himself. Then what was the issue? Image. Money. The kind of discrimination that never gets written down but everyone understands. Vincent's voice was bitter. They wanted servers who looked the part for wealthy VIP customers. You're lying, Marcus said, but something in Vincent's tone made him doubt his own words. Vincent pulled out his phone. Listen to this. He played a voicemail message. A smooth corporate voice filled the air. Vincent, this is Richard Blackstone from corporate headquarters. We need to discuss staffing changes in the VIP section. The investors are concerned about presentation. You understand what I mean. Handle it quietly, and there will be a bonus in it for you. Marcus stared at the phone. Who is Richard Blackstone? Vice President of Operations for Aurelius Restaurant Group. He's been pushing to upgrade the customer experience by hiring what he calls more appropriate staff. They sat down on another bench. Marcus tried to process this information. So when Michael Jordan defended me that night, I panicked. Vincent admitted. I was supposed to fire you quietly, maybe claim there were customer complaints or performance issues. But when Jordan started defending you, I couldn't exactly explain that I was following racist orders from corporate. So you attacked me publicly instead. I thought if I made it look like a routine management decision, Jordan would understand and stay out of it. I never expected him to own the restaurant. Marcus felt sick. The discrimination went deeper than one prejudiced manager. It came from the very top of the company. Why are you telling me this now? Vincent was quiet for a long moment, watching seagulls fight over scraps near the water. Because my lawyer found out about the corporate orders. He says it strengthens my case, that I was just following instructions from my superiors. But that means Richard Blackstone and probably Jonathan Aurelius knew about the discriminatory policies all along. They're gonna throw me under the bus and claim I was acting alone. Marcus thought about all the employees who had suffered under Vincent's management. All the talented people who had been held back because of their race or accent or background. Do you have proof of these orders? Vincent nodded and pulled a small flash drive from his pocket. Emails, voicemails, text messages. 3 years of corporate instructions to discriminate, always worded carefully but clear in their meaning. He handed the drive to Marcus. Everything is on there. Marcus stared at the small device. Why are you giving this to me instead of using it to defend yourself? Because I've been thinking about what Jordan said that night. About respect and treating people as human beings. Vincent looked out at the lake again. I've lost my job, my reputation, maybe my whole career. But you know what? I deserved it. That doesn't make up for what you did to people. No, it doesn't. But maybe it explains why I did it. Vincent's voice got quieter. I was angry at everything. My divorce, my debts, feeling like I was stuck in a dead-end job. It was easier to take that anger out on people who couldn't fight back than to face my own failures. Marcus studied Vincent's face, trying to figure out if this was real remorse or just another manipulation. I took orders from corporate because it was easier than standing up for what was right, Vincent continued. I told myself I was just doing my job, but really I was being a coward. So what changed? Seeing what Jordan is trying to do with those community programs. Seeing how you handled being promoted with grace and hard work instead of bitterness. Vincent managed a small smile. You're everything I should have been but wasn't. Marcus looked at the flash drive in his hand. What happens if I give this evidence to Michael's lawyers? Corporate gets exposed for the discrimination they've been hiding. Richard Blackstone probably loses his job. The real people behind the racist policies get held accountable. And what happens to you? I still get punished for carrying out those policies. But at least the truth comes out about who was really giving the orders. Marcus put the flash drive in his jacket pocket. Vincent, I need to ask you something directly. Are you doing this because you're genuinely sorry or because you're trying to save yourself? Vincent was quiet for a long time. Maybe both. I can't undo the damage I caused to you and the other employees. But I can make sure the people who created this system don't get away with it. As they walked back toward the parking area, Vincent spoke again. Marcus, there's something else you should know. The anonymous tip Sarah Kim got yesterday? That was me. You're the informant who wanted to meet tonight? I wanted to give you this evidence in person. To explain why I did what I did and let you decide what to do with the information. Marcus felt overwhelmed. This evidence could expose the corporate conspiracy that had targeted him and other employees. But it could also help Vincent's legal case by making him look like a victim instead of a perpetrator. What should I do? That's not for me to decide, Vincent said. But those employees who got discriminated against deserve to know who was really behind their mistreatment. As Vincent walked away toward his car, he turned back one more time. Marcus, I know I don't have the right to ask for forgiveness. But I want you to know that watching you succeed despite everything I put you through, it's given me hope that maybe people can change. Marcus drove back to Aurelius with the flash drive burning like a coal in his pocket. When he arrived, he found Michael in the office, reviewing blueprints for the youth center. How did your break go? Michael asked without looking up. Marcus pulled out the flash drive and set it on the desk. We need to call Sarah Kim. I have something she needs to see. Michael looked at the drive, then at Marcus. Where did you get this? Vincent Hayes gave it to me. He says it contains evidence that he was following orders from corporate to discriminate against minority employees. Michael's expression grew serious. You met with Vincent? After we told you it was dangerous? I had to know the truth, Marcus said. And now I do. The discrimination wasn't just Vincent being prejudiced. It came from the top of the company. Michael picked up the flash drive. What's on here? According to Vincent, 3 years of emails, voicemails, and messages from Richard Blackstone ordering discriminatory hiring and firing practices. Richard Blackstone. I've heard that name before. Michael's eyes widened. He's one of the executives who negotiated my purchase of the restaurant. He knew I was the anonymous buyer. Marcus felt a chill. What does that mean? It means they knew a successful black businessman was investing in their company, and they still ordered discriminatory policies. Michael's voice grew hard. They thought they could hide their racism from me. What do we do now? Michael was already reaching for his phone. We call Sarah and we examine this evidence very carefully. If Vincent is telling the truth, this changes everything. As Michael dialed Sarah's number, Marcus realized that the real battle was just beginning. Vincent Hayes had been just the tip of the iceberg. The real enemy was much bigger and more powerful than they had imagined. Sarah Kim arrived at Aurelius within an hour, her briefcase in one hand and her laptop in the other. She looked like she had dropped everything to rush over. "Show me what you have," she said without any greeting. Marcus handed her the flash drive. "Vincent says this contains 3 years of evidence about corporate discrimination orders." Sarah plugged the drive into her laptop. As files loaded onto the screen, her expression grew more serious with each document she opened. "This is incredible," she said after 20 minutes of reading. "And absolutely damning." Michael leaned over her shoulder to read. "What exactly are we looking at?" Email after email from Richard Blackstone, giving coded instructions about hiring and staff placement, Sarah explained. "Listen to this one." She read from the screen. "Vincent, we need to be more selective about front-of-house staff. Our high-end clientele expects a certain aesthetic. Please handle accordingly." "That doesn't sound too bad," Marcus said. "Wait, there's more." Sarah clicked on another email. This one is from 2 months later. "The server in VIP Section 3 doesn't project the professional image we need. Please reassign to back-of-house duties immediately." "Who was working VIP Section 3 2 months ago?" Michael asked. Marcus thought back. That was Jennifer Martinez. She got moved to the regular dining room around that time. Vincent said it was because of customer complaints, but there's no record of any customer complaints, Sarah said, scrolling through more files. Just this email from Blackstone. She opened a text message thread. "These are even worse. Look at this exchange between Blackstone and Vincent." The messages appeared on screen. Blackstone. "Need changes in VIP staff. Too urban for our crowd." Vincent. "Which servers specifically?" Blackstone. "You know which ones. Handle it quietly." Vincent. "What about performance reviews?" "They're all excellent." Blackstone. "Find other reasons. Be creative." Marcus felt sick reading these messages. They were planning to get rid of me and others just because of how we looked. "It gets worse," Sarah said grimly. She opened an audio file. This is a recorded phone conversation from 6 months ago. Richard Blackstone's smooth voice filled the office. "Vincent, I need you to understand something important. We have a new major investor, and we believe he's African American. We can't have the restaurant looking too diverse. When he finally reveals himself, it would send the wrong message about our standards." Vincent's voice responded, "What if the new owner doesn't approve of the staffing changes? The owner will remain anonymous. He's a silent partner who won't interfere with day-to-day operations. Just make the changes and don't worry about it." The office went completely quiet. Michael's face had turned to stone. "They knew," Michael said slowly. "They knew I was the investor, and they still planned to discriminate against black employees." "It's worse than that," Sarah said, opening another file. "Look at this internal memo from Blackstone to Jonathan Aurelius." The memo appeared on screen. "Jonathan. Our new investor presents both opportunity and risk. His money will help us expand, but his background could change our customer demographics in ways that hurt our upscale image. We need to ensure our staff reflects the kind of establishment our traditional clientele expects. Make necessary adjustments before investor becomes more involved in operations." Marcus stared at the screen. Jonathan Aurelius knew about this too? According to this evidence, yes. The discrimination wasn't just Vincent following orders. It was company policy approved at the highest levels. Michael stood up and walked to the window. Outside, protesters still gathered occasionally, but the crowds had gotten smaller over the past few weeks. They took my money, he said quietly, and used it to fund discrimination against people who looked like me. Sarah continued reviewing files. There are dozens of emails like this. Instructions to move minority employees to less visible positions, orders to hire more presentable staff for VIP sections, even guidelines for which employees should interact with wealthy customers. What about other restaurants? Marcus asked. Is this just Aurelius or a bigger pattern? Sarah's expression grew even more serious. According to these files, Aurelius Restaurant Group owns 12 establishments across Chicago. The same policies were implemented at all of them. 12 restaurants, Michael repeated. How many employees were affected? Based on these documents, probably hundreds over the past 3 years. Marcus thought about all the talented servers, hosts, and kitchen staff who had been held back or fired because of their race. People with families to support, dreams to pursue, bills to pay. We have to expose this, he said. It's not that simple, Sarah warned. This evidence was given to us by Vincent Hayes, who's currently suing Michael for discrimination. If we use it, Vincent's lawyers could claim we're retaliating against their client. But Vincent gave it to us voluntarily, Marcus protested. That's what we say. Vincent's lawyer could claim we pressured or threatened him. Richard Sterling is very good at twisting facts to support his narrative. Michael turned back from the window. What if we don't use the evidence in Vincent's case? What if we file a separate lawsuit against Blackstone and the corporate executives? That's possible, Sarah said thoughtfully. But it would be a massive undertaking. We'd be taking on a multi-million-dollar corporation with teams of expensive lawyers. I've got expensive lawyers too, Michael said with determination. It's not just about money. Corporate discrimination cases can drag on for years. The publicity would be intense and ugly. They'll attack your character, your business dealings, your community projects. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the complexity of it all. What happens if we don't fight? If we just let this evidence disappear? Then Richard Blackstone keeps his job and continues discriminating against minority employees at 12 restaurants, Sarah said. And other companies learn they can get away with the same behavior. But if we do fight, Michael added, we could lose everything we've worked for. The community development projects could get canceled. The youth center might never get built. They sat in silence for several minutes, each considering the impossible choice. Fight and risk losing everything. Or stay quiet and let injustice continue. Marcus thought about his sister Keisha, who dreamed of becoming a doctor. He thought about all the kids in his neighborhood who needed the youth center and job training programs. He thought about his mother still fighting cancer, and all the other families struggling to get by. There's something else to consider, Marcus said slowly. If we expose this corporate conspiracy, what happens to Vincent's case against Michael? Sarah looked up from her laptop. That's actually a good question. If we can prove Vincent was following direct orders from his superiors, it changes his legal position entirely. How so? Instead of being the main perpetrator, Vincent becomes another victim of the discriminatory system. His case against Michael gets much weaker. Michael considered this. So exposing the corporate conspiracy could actually help clear my name? Potentially, yes. But it's still risky. Sterling will argue that you're trying to deflect blame and destroy evidence. Marcus picked up one of the printed emails and read it again. The casual way Blackstone talked about removing urban employees made his stomach turn. I keep thinking about what Vincent said at the lake, Marcus told them. About how employees deserve to know who was really behind their mistreatment. Vincent has his own motives, Sarah warned. He might be trying to reduce his own legal liability by shifting blame to corporate executives. Maybe, but that doesn't make the evidence fake. Michael sat back down and looked at both Marcus and Sarah. I need to ask you both something important. If we decide to fight this, are you prepared for what's coming? This won't be just a legal battle. It'll be a war. Sarah nodded immediately. I became a lawyer to fight injustice. This is exactly the kind of case I live for. Marcus took longer to answer. He thought about his quiet life as a waiter, trying to stay invisible and avoid trouble. That life was gone forever now. But did he really want to be at the center of a national controversy? Marcus, Michael said gently, I need to know you're all in. because once we start this fight, there's no going back. Marcus looked at the evidence spread across the table, emails, messages, and recordings that proved a systematic effort to discriminate against people like him. He thought about all the employees who had been quietly pushed aside, their talents wasted because of prejudice. 2 months ago, I was afraid to even ask for more hours in the VIP section, he said finally. I thought if I just kept my head down and worked hard, eventually things would get better. He stood up, feeling stronger than he had in years. But things don't get better by themselves. They get better when people are brave enough to fight for what's right. Marcus looked directly at Michael. I'm all in. Let's expose these people and make sure this never happens to anyone else. Michael smiled, not the polite smile he gave to reporters, but the fierce grin he used to wear when his team was down by 20 points and he knew they could still win. Then let's go to war, he said. Sarah began organizing the evidence files. First, we need to verify that all this information is authentic. Then we need to contact the other employees who were affected by these policies. How many people are we talking about? Marcus asked. Based on these documents, potentially dozens at Aurelius alone, and hundreds across all their restaurants. That's a lot of people who were hurt by these policies, Michael observed. It's also a lot of potential witnesses, Sarah added. If even half of them are willing to testify, we'll have an overwhelming case. Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and terror. They were about to take on powerful corporate executives with unlimited resources and ruthless lawyers. But they were also about to give voices to all the employees who had been silenced by discrimination. There's one more thing we need to discuss, Sarah said seriously. Once we file this lawsuit, Richard Blackstone and Aurelius Restaurant Group will do everything they can to destroy our credibility. They'll investigate every aspect of your lives, looking for anything they can use against you. What kind of things? Marcus asked. Financial problems, personal relationships, anything that might make you look bad in court or in the media. They'll probably hire private investigators to follow you around. Michael laughed grimly. Let them come. I've been in the public eye for 30 years. I'm not afraid of investigation. What about you, Marcus? Are you prepared to have your entire life examined by hostile lawyers and reporters? Marcus thought about his family struggles, his mother's cancer, his father's death, the times they'd been late on rent or utilities. There were things he wasn't proud of, mistakes he'd made. But there were also things he was proud of. Working multiple jobs to support his family, never giving up despite the obstacles, treating others with kindness even when they didn't return it. I'm not perfect, he said. But I'm not ashamed of who I am or where I come from. If they want to investigate me, let them. They'll find someone who works hard and tries to do right by his family. Sarah closed her laptop. Then it's decided. Tomorrow morning, I'm filing a federal discrimination lawsuit against Richard Blackstone, Jonathan Aurelius and Aurelius Restaurant Group. What happens next? Michael asked. Next, we prepare for the fight of our lives. Because once this story breaks, everything changes. As they prepared to leave the office, Marcus realized that his simple life as a waiter was truly over. Tomorrow, he would become the face of a battle that could change how restaurants across the country treated their employees. But for the first time since that terrible night with Vincent Hayes, Marcus felt like he was on the right side of history. The next morning, Marcus woke up to his phone buzzing nonstop. News of the federal lawsuit had broken at 6 a.m., and reporters were calling everyone connected to the case. Federal lawsuit exposes restaurant chain discrimination, read the headline on Channel 7 News. Michael Jordan sues corporate executives for systematic racism. Marcus sat on his bed, reading news article after news article. Sarah Kim had filed the lawsuit exactly as promised, naming Richard Blackstone, Jonathan Aurelius, and Aurelius Restaurant Group as defendants. The evidence was devastating. News outlets published excerpts from Blackstone's emails, showing clear instructions to discriminate against minority employees. The recorded phone conversation about keeping the restaurant from looking too diverse played on every morning show. His phone rang again. This time it was his sister Keisha. Marcus, you're on TV, she said excitedly. They're calling you a civil rights hero. Marcus looked at himself in the mirror. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt tired and nervous about what was coming next. I'm just trying to do the right thing, Keisha. Mom wants to talk to you. She's been crying happy tears all morning. His mother, Sarah, came on the phone. Despite her ongoing cancer treatments, Her voice was strong and proud. "Baby, I am so proud of you. Your father would be proud too." "Mom, this is gonna get ugly. There will be reporters bothering our family, people saying mean things about us. Let them come," she said firmly. "We've got nothing to hide. You're fighting for people who can't fight for themselves. That's what matters." After hanging up, Marcus drove to Aurelius for what had become daily strategy meetings with Michael and Sarah. The restaurant was surrounded by news trucks and protesters, but this time the crowd was different. Instead of angry arguments between opposing groups, Marcus saw families holding signs that said "Thank you, Marcus" and "End workplace discrimination." There were servers from other restaurants, kitchen workers, and people from his neighborhood who had come to show support. Mrs. Washington, his elderly neighbor, stood near the front entrance with a homemade sign reading "Justice for all workers." "Marcus," she called when she saw him. "We're so proud of what you're doing." Inside the restaurant, Marcus found Michael and Sarah surrounded by boxes of legal documents and stacks of phone messages. "How many people have called?" Marcus asked. "Over 200, Sarah reported. "Restaurant workers from across the city want to share their stories. Apparently, this kind of discrimination is more common than we thought." Michael looked up from a legal brief he was reviewing. 3 other restaurant chains have already announced they're reviewing their hiring practices. Just filing this lawsuit is already creating change. "What about Richard Blackstone? Have they responded yet?" Sarah's expression grew serious. Blackstone's legal team issued a statement denying all accusations. They're claiming the emails and recordings were taken out of context. "How can discrimination orders be taken out of context?" Marcus asked. "They'll argue that aesthetic and professional image refer to dress codes and customer service skills, not race," Sarah explained. "Sterling's firm is representing them now, and they're very good at creating reasonable doubt." "Richard Sterling is representing both Vincent and the corporate executives?" "No, that would be a conflict of interest. Sterling is still representing Vincent, but Blackstone hired a different firm, Morrison, Blake & Associates. They're even more expensive and ruthless than Sterling." Marcus felt overwhelmed by the legal complexity, but Michael seemed energized by the challenge. "Let them hire whoever they want," Michael said. "The evidence speaks for itself." "There's something else," Sarah continued. "Investigator Reynolds from the EEOC called this morning. She wants to expand her investigation to include all 12 restaurants in the Aurelius chain." "Is that good news?" "It's great news. A federal investigation gives us more credibility and resources. But it also means this case will take longer to resolve." Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer Martinez. "Saw the news. Thank you for fighting for all of us. I want to help however I can." Similar messages were coming from Chen, David, and other Aurelius employees. Even former workers who had quit or been fired were reaching out to share their experiences. "We need to organize all these potential witnesses," Sarah said. "Each person's story adds to the pattern of discrimination. How do we do that without it looking like we're coaching people?" Michael asked. "Very carefully. We document everything, record all interviews, and make sure every witness tells their own story in their own words." As they discussed legal strategy, Patricia Wong knocked on the office door. "Michael, there's someone here to see you. Says it's about the community development projects." A woman in an expensive business suit entered the office. She was tall, blonde, and carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to getting her way. "Mr. Jordan, I'm Linda Morrison from Morrison, Blake & Associates. I represent Aurelius Restaurant Group." Sarah immediately stood up. "This is highly inappropriate. You can't speak directly to our clients without going through counsel." "I'm not here about the lawsuit," Morrison said smoothly. "I'm here to discuss Mr. Jordan's community development plans." Michael gestured for her to sit down. "What about them?" "My clients are concerned that the negative publicity from this lawsuit might affect the permitting and approval process for your projects. City officials are already asking questions." Marcus felt his stomach drop. What kind of questions? Whether a businessman involved in high-profile racial controversies should be developing community programs. Whether the projects themselves might create division rather than unity. "That's ridiculous," Michael said angrily. "These programs are designed to help everyone in the community, regardless of race." "I'm sure they are," Morrison replied. "But perception matters as much as reality in municipal politics." Sarah stepped forward. "Ms. Morrison, if you're here to threaten our client's community projects unless he drops the lawsuit, that's extortion." Morrison smiled coldly. I'm simply informing Mr. Jordan about potential consequences of his choices. Lawsuits can be messy. Sometimes innocent projects get caught in the crossfire. After Morrison left, the office was quiet for several minutes. Can they really stop the community projects? Marcus asked. They can try, Michael said grimly. If they convince city officials that I'm a divisive figure, permits could get delayed or denied. But the neighborhood needs those programs. The kids, the job training, the affordable housing. I know, Michael said. That's exactly why they're threatening them. They know I care more about the community than about winning a lawsuit. Sarah was already on her laptop, researching legal precedents. There might be ways to protect the projects, but it would require separate legal action. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Hundreds of families were counting on the community center and job training programs. Kids were dreaming of basketball courts and computer labs. If pursuing justice meant those dreams wouldn't come true, Michael, he said quietly, maybe we should reconsider. If fighting this case means the community loses those programs. No, Michael interrupted firmly. That's exactly the choice they want us to make. Justice for you and hundreds of other workers, or help for the community. They're trying to divide us. But what if we can't have both? Michael stood up and walked to the window, overlooking the street where he'd grown up. Marcus, when I was playing basketball, I learned something important about bullies. If you give in to their threats once, they'll keep threatening you forever. He turned back to face Marcus and Sarah. Morrison's clients discriminated against employees for years. Now they're threatening community programs to avoid accountability. If we back down, what message does that send? That discrimination pays, Sarah said quietly. Exactly. And that means it will keep happening to other people in other places. Marcus thought about all the restaurant workers who had called to share their stories. People who had been quietly pushed aside, denied opportunities, treated as invisible. What if we found a way to separate the lawsuit from the community projects? He suggested. Keep fighting the discrimination case while protecting the programs? Sarah looked up from her research. That might be possible. If we can prove that threatening the community projects is retaliation for filing the lawsuit, we could get a court order protecting them. How long would that take? Weeks, maybe months. And there's no guarantee it would work. Michael made a decision. We move forward with everything. The lawsuit and the community projects. We don't let them divide our goals. That's the riskiest path, Sarah warned. It's also the right path, Michael replied. Besides, I have an idea about how to protect the community programs. What kind of idea? Michael smiled, and Marcus recognized the expression from his playing days. The look of someone who had just figured out how to win an impossible game. We're going to give the community a voice in this fight. Make them part of the solution instead of just victims of the problem. How? Tomorrow, we're holding a community meeting. We'll explain what's happening, show people the evidence, and let them decide if they want to support the lawsuit. Marcus felt a surge of hope. You think they'll stand with us? I think they'll stand with justice. And I think Morrison's clients are about to learn what happens when you threaten an entire community's future. As they prepared for the community meeting, Marcus realized that the fight had grown far beyond his personal experience with Vincent Hayes. This was now about systematic change, about giving working people the respect and opportunities they deserve. And for the first time since this all began, Marcus felt like they might actually win. The community meeting was scheduled for Saturday evening at the old Southside Community Center. Marcus arrived an hour early to help set up chairs, but he found the parking lot already packed with cars and people streaming toward the building. How many people are we expecting? He asked Michael, who was reviewing his notes near the entrance. We sent notices to about 300 families, Michael replied, but it looks like word spread beyond that. Inside the community center's main hall, Marcus was amazed by what he saw. Nearly 500 people filled every seat and lined the walls. There were restaurant workers, teachers, construction workers, nurses, students, and elderly residents. Children sat on their parents' laps. Teenagers stood in the back, taking pictures with their phones. Mrs. Washington waved at Marcus from the front row. His sister Keisha sat nearby with several of her classmates. Even his mother had insisted on coming despite her ongoing cancer treatments. I've never seen this many people here for anything, said Jerome Williams, the community center director. He was a tall, thin man in his 60s who had grown up in the neighborhood and dedicated his life to helping local families. Sarah Kim was setting up a projector to display the evidence from the lawsuit. "Marcus, are you ready for this? Once we show these documents publicly, there's no going back." Marcus looked out at the crowd of faces. People from his neighborhood, his community, his life. Many of them had probably experienced discrimination themselves, whether at work, school, or in stores and restaurants. They understood what this fight was really about. "I'm ready," he said. Michael stepped to the microphone at the front of the hall. The room immediately went quiet. "Thank you all for coming tonight," Michael began. "I know you have families to take care of, jobs to get to, and 100 other things you could be doing. But you're here because you care about justice." Scattered applause broke out across the room. "A few weeks ago, I witnessed something that changed my life. I saw a hard-working young man humiliated in front of 50 people, simply because someone decided he didn't look right for the job he was doing perfectly." Michael gestured toward Marcus. "That young man is Marcus Thompson, and he's here tonight to tell you his story." Marcus had given interviews to reporters and talked to lawyers, but speaking to 500 people from his own community felt different. These weren't strangers. These were neighbors who had watched him grow up. People who knew his family, friends who had supported him through difficult times. "6 weeks ago, I was just a waiter trying to pay my mother's medical bills and help my sister with school," Marcus began. "I thought if I worked hard and kept my head down, everything would be okay." He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. "But I learned that sometimes keeping your head down isn't enough. Sometimes you have to lift your head up and fight for what's right." Marcus told the crowd about that night at Aurelius, Vincent's humiliating comments, Michael's unexpected defense, the shocking discovery that he owned the restaurant. People gasped when Marcus described Vincent's use of the phrase, "you people," in front of the entire dining room. "But that was just the beginning," Marcus continued. "What we discovered next was much worse." Sarah activated the projector, and Richard Blackstone's emails appeared on a large screen for everyone to read. The crowd grew angry as they saw the coded language about aesthetic standards and professional image. When the recorded phone conversation played, Blackstone's voice explaining that the restaurant couldn't look too diverse for the new black investor. The room erupted in shouts of outrage. "That's illegal," someone called out. "How many other places do this?" asked another voice. Michael returned to the microphone. "According to our investigation, this discrimination affected 12 restaurants and hundreds of employees over 3 years. People were denied promotions, moved to less visible positions, or fired entirely because of their race or background." An older woman in the third row stood up. Marcus recognized her as Mrs. Jenkins, who worked as a hostess at an upscale restaurant downtown. "Mr. Jordan, this same thing happened to me at Romano's Steakhouse," she said. "They told me I didn't have the refined appearance for greeting customers. Made me work in the coat check instead." A young Latino man raised his hand. "My cousin got fired from his server job at Preston's. They said customers complained about his accent, but he never got to see any complaint forms." Story after story poured out. People who had been quietly discriminated against for years finally had a chance to two up. Marcus realized that Vincent Hayes and Richard Blackstone weren't unique. This kind of discrimination was happening all over the city. "The question now," Michael said, "is what do we do about it?" Linda Morrison, the corporate lawyer, had been sitting quietly in the back of the room. She stood up and walked toward the microphone. "Mr. Jordan, may I address the community?" Sarah looked alarmed, but Michael nodded. "This is a public meeting. Everyone has a right to speak." Morrison took the microphone with practiced confidence. "Ladies and gentlemen, I represent Aurelius Restaurant Group. We strongly deny all accusations of discrimination." The crowd began booing and shouting. Morrison raised her voice to continue. "The emails and recordings you've seen tonight were taken out of context. Our company has always promoted diversity and equal opportunity. Then why did you fire people for being black?" Mrs. Washington called out. "We've never fired anyone because of their race," Morrison replied smoothly. "Employment decisions were based on performance, customer feedback, and business needs." Marcus couldn't stay quiet. He stood up and walked toward the microphone. "Ms. Morrison, how do you explain Richard Blackstone's recorded statement about keeping the restaurant from looking too diverse?" That conversation was about maintaining professional standards across all our establishments. Morrison replied without missing a beat. What professional standards require getting rid of minority employees? Morrison hesitated for the first time. We believe in hiring the best candidates regardless of background. An elderly black man in the front row stood up. Marcus recognized him as Reverend Davis from the neighborhood church. "Young lady," Reverend Davis said in a voice that commanded respect, "I've been fighting discrimination for 60 years. I know the difference between professional standards and racism. What your company did was wrong, and everyone in this room knows it." The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Morrison looked uncomfortable for the first time. Furthermore, Reverend Davis continued, "I want everyone here to know that this fight isn't just about one restaurant or one young man. It's about whether we'll tolerate a system that judges people by their appearance instead of their character." More applause filled the hall. Michael returned to the microphone. "There's something else we need to discuss. Ms. Morrison's clients are threatening to use their influence to block the community development projects I've planned for this neighborhood." The room went quiet. Everyone knew about the proposed youth center, job training facility, and affordable housing. "They're trying to make us choose," Michael explained. "Drop the discrimination lawsuit, or lose the programs that could help hundreds of families." "That's blackmail," someone shouted. Morrison tried to respond, but the crowd was too loud. Shouts of "shame" and "leave our community alone" filled the air. Marcus took the microphone again. "I want everyone to know that I've thought about backing down. These programs mean everything to our community. Kids need that youth center. Families need those job training opportunities." The room grew quiet again, waiting to hear what Marcus would say. "But I realized something tonight. Listening to all your stories, if we back down now, if we let them threaten our community into silence, what message does that send to other companies? What happens to the next Marcus Thompson, who gets discriminated against?" He looked out at the crowd, making eye contact with as many people as possible. "We can't let them divide us. We can't let them make us choose between justice and progress. We have to fight for both." The community center exploded in applause. People stood up cheering and whistling. Marcus saw his mother wiping tears from her eyes, his sister beaming with pride. When the noise died down, Reverend Davis spoke again. "I move that this community officially supports Marcus Thompson and Michael Jordan in their fight against discrimination." "All in favor?" Hundreds of hands shot up across the room. The few people who didn't raise their hands weren't opposed. They were holding babies or taking pictures. "The motion passes unanimously," Reverend Davis declared. Morrison tried one last time to address the crowd, but people were already standing up and moving toward the exits. Her threats and legal maneuvering had backfired completely. As the community meeting ended, something remarkable happened. Instead of just leaving, people began organizing. Restaurant workers enhanced phone numbers to share their experiences. Parents signed up to volunteer for the youth center construction. Local business owners pledged financial support for the legal fight. Mrs. Washington approached Marcus as he was helping stack chairs. "Baby, I'm proud of you for standing up. But I'm even more proud that you're fighting for all of us, not just yourself." Jerome Williams, the community center director, shook Michael's hand. "Mr. Jordan, in 30 years of community work, I've never seen people this united about anything. You've given them hope." Over the next 2 weeks, the momentum from the community meeting created changes that surprised everyone. The story of the discriminatory email spread far beyond Chicago. Restaurant workers in New York, Los Angeles, and other cities began sharing similar experiences on social media. The hashtag #DoneRestaurantJustice started trending nationally. Labor unions organized protests outside Aurelius Restaurant Group locations. Food critics began writing articles about discrimination in the restaurant industry. Most importantly, other employees found the courage to speak up. The EEOC investigation expanded to include allegations at dozens of restaurants across multiple states. What had started as Marcus's individual case became a national movement for workplace dignity. Richard Blackstone resigned from Aurelius Restaurant Group under pressure from the board of directors. Jonathan Aurelius issued a public apology and announced new diversity training for all employees. Vincent Hayes, whose testimony had been crucial in exposing the corporate conspiracy, was quietly hired as a diversity consultant by a restaurant union. He spent his time training managers about respectful workplace practices. But the biggest victory came 6 months later. Marcus stood in the empty lot where construction was beginning on the Southside Youth and Community Center. The building permits had been approved unanimously by the city council after hundreds of community members packed the hearing to show support. Michael joined him as they watched construction crews breaking ground. "You know what I learned from all this?" Michael said. "What's that?" "Individual success doesn't mean much if you don't use it to lift up others. Winning championships was great, but helping build this community center might be the most important thing I ever do." Marcus watched kids from the neighborhood climbing on the construction equipment, laughing and playing where soon there would be basketball courts, computer labs, and after-school programs. "My sister got accepted to Northwestern University," Marcus told Michael. "Full scholarship through your education program. She earned it. Keisha is going to be an incredible doctor someday. And my mom's cancer is in remission. The health insurance from my new job covered treatments we never could have afforded before." Michael smiled. "See what happens when people stand up for each other?" As they walked back toward Aurelius Restaurant, where Marcus now worked as director of community outreach, he reflected on everything that had changed. The scared waiter who had been humiliated in front of 50 customers was gone. In his place was a confident young man who had learned that fighting for justice wasn't just about winning. It was about giving others the courage to fight for themselves. The golden lights of Aurelius still shone as brightly as ever. But now they reflected something different. Not just wealth and privilege, but dignity, respect, and the knowledge that everyone who worked there belonged. Marcus had learned that sometimes the most important victories aren't the ones that make headlines. They're the quiet moments when someone gets treated fairly, when a talented person gets the opportunity they deserve, when a community comes together to build something better. And that night, as Marcus locked up the restaurant where his transformation had begun, he knew that his real work was just getting started. And that was the end of Marcus Thompson's incredible journey from a humiliated waiter to a community champion. His story reminds us that standing up for what's right can change not just our own lives, but the lives of countless others. We'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and tell us your city or country. It's amazing to connect with viewers from all around the world. If this story touched your heart or opened your eyes to workplace discrimination, please hit that like button. It really helps us reach more people who need to hear these important messages. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest stories about courage, justice, and the power of standing up for others. Most importantly, please share this video with your friends and family. Stories like Marcus's help spread kindness and awareness about treating everyone with dignity and respect, no matter their background or position in life. Together, we can build a world where everyone belongs and everyone matters. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next story.